move on to the first panel discussion for the day today. So we have our first panel led by Girls in Tech on the topic of leveraging data for the digital future. This is going to be an hour and a half. So GIT will be leading the discussion, and I'll hand over to the team and Mitali Oli to moderate the session. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. So happy to be here today. And this is a big year for a lot of reasons. Hopefully, an end of COVID era. And most importantly, fresh year means advancement in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. And women have a significant role to play in all of that. Mitali Oli, the moderator for the panel discussion this afternoon. Today, we all have gathered here for a panel discussion on the topic, the leadership panel, leveraging data for a digital future. The major goal of organizing this conference, this panel discussion, is to leverage the power of women in data and technology and to understand where women stand in terms of data in this era of technological transformation. The panel discussion is organized by Girls in Technopal. Girls in Technopal started the chapter with the vision of creating a community of like-minded women who would support and encourage one another right here in Nepal. At Girls in Tech, young women can join in a mission to build a diverse and inclusive tech workforce and grow in their career too as well. Now, I would like to start the panel discussion by introducing our honorable panelist. Our first panelist is Ms. Sumana Shrestha. She is the managing partner of Kosi Collaborative. Kosi Collaborative is a technology and management consulting company that works at the intersection of data and research in South Asia with the objective of helping clients realize the potential of the data and harness the power of data-driven decision making. She is an MBA from MIT Sloan School of Business and bachelor's in mathematics and economics from Bryn Mawr College. She is also a published mathematician in topology and geometry. Welcome to the panel, Ms. Sumana. Our second panelist is Ms. Jamie Holton. She is the project management and research officer for Publish What You Fund, the global campaign for aid and development transparency. She oversees the gender financing project, which aims to get a clear picture of funding towards gender equality in Kenya, Nepal, and Guatemala so we can hold governments and funders to account on their gender equality commitments and understand which initiatives make societies more equal. She holds an MSc in International Development and Humanitarian Emergencies from London School of Economics and an MA in International Relations from Leiden University in the Netherlands. Welcome to the panel, Ms. Jamie. Our third panelist is Ms. Jyoti Devkota. She completed bachelor's and master's in mathematical statistics from Lady Shri Ram College, New Delhi, India. She completed her PhD from Department of Computer Science and Mathematics, University of Osnabrück, Germany, with DAAD fellowship. She is a professor in the Department of Mathematics, Kathmandu University, Nepal. She has over 25 first authored publications in international peer-reviewed journals. She has presented papers in several national and international conferences. Ms. Jyoti Devkota has also written 3 books on statistics and data analysis. Welcome to the panel, Ms. Jyoti.
Thank you.
So I would like to start the panel discussion by asking my first question to Ms. Sumana Shrestha. Sumana ma'am, do you have any national or international data related to participation of women in technology in Nepal?
Uh, First of all, good afternoon, everyone. Very honored to be here. Mithali, related to your question, I think ICT Nepal does a really good publication and comes up with a booklet every year that has some of those statistics pertaining to Nepal, including the participation rate of women in bachelor's in STEM fields, in 12th grade as well, and then higher up. I think if I were to look at that number, it was pretty low. It was like 8 to 9%. So that there's a lot to be done in that sector. So that's Nepal specific data.
Thank you, Sumana ma'am. My second question will be for Ms. Shami. Ma'am, is the data related to Nepal? Is the data related to women in Nepal accurate? Even while I was researching yesterday, I had to borrow the international data to address the issues related to women. So how can we make data accurate and accessible to all?
Thank you, Mitali, for the introduction and the question. It is a pleasure and an honor to be here, and it's great to see some familiar faces as well. And I want to thank my co-panelists as well. Very excited to be part of this panel. Related to your question, as you introduced Publish What You Fund, we are really the campaign for global aid and development transparency. So when we started our gender financing project, we really started with the understanding of, in 2015, all governments had committed to Sustainable Development Goal 5, which is to improve and achieve gender equality and women's empowerment. Through Sustainable Development Goal 5, they also committed to significantly increase their investments towards gender equality to try and close the gender inequality gaps. So we found that the financial commitments towards gender equality were a good proxy for understanding, are governments putting their money where their mouth is? Are they really trying to make a difference towards gender equality? And based on that, we really wanted to look at two specific types of data. We wanted to understand what is the information available on the funding by governments and donor governments for that matter, when it comes to gender equality in Nepal, and also what information can we find on these initiatives that they're funding? Who are they trying to benefit the gender equality of, right? We know, as McNalbo explained, women and girls are not a monolith. They have very different experiences. They have intersectionality. So these projects can't consider women and girls as a monolith as well. So who are they really trying to benefit with their projects? Is the information accurate? Is it clear and complete? Is it up to date? And also, is it easy to access, right? Because we want to make sure that data isn't just there for data's sake, but that data is used in a way that actually informs program design and helps governments and local society and donors to start a conversation about where they should be allocating their funding towards, hopefully towards the most effective initiatives when it comes to improving gender equality and to avoid duplication of efforts, right? We don't want 4 schools to be built in the same town when there's no funding for books or teachers. So having that coordination, data can really help to facilitate that. And together with our consultant, Srecha Dahal in Nepal, our team really tried to look at the openly available data by governments and donors. And we conducted interviews with key stakeholders. So we looked at the quantitative side of data and the qualitative side to really ask, is this information available? Is it accessible? Is it right? Is it accurate? And we found that our key gender equality stakeholders that we interviewed weren't satisfied with the data. They believed the quantity or the quality was insufficient. And we also found that that actually makes it really hard for them to hold governments to account when it comes to their gender equality commitments. And it makes the development community question, this funding is going towards the initiatives, but are they actually working, right? Are they achieving the results that they set out to achieve? And our research backed this view by the interviewees. We found that the government of Nepal has made very considerable efforts to develop and promote gender responsive budgeting, and also to track international funding through their aid information management system called AMIS, hosted by the Ministry of Finance in Nepal. And we also found that donors are really making great efforts to mark their funding with a gender marker, which makes it easier to track their commitments. But at the same time, if we find that the key stakeholders in Nepal don't find this information to be sufficient, to be of sufficient quality for them to use it, we know that there is a gap, right? There's a gap between the data that's being put out and the data that's actually being used. So in our research, we try to highlight the information that is available and how reliable it is. We try to highlight the key challenges that remain. And also we propose key considerations for the government and for international donors and civil society to try and improve their publication of data, but also to engage with the key gender equality stakeholders to make sure that the data that they put out really is the most useful and the most effective for people to actually use it for their program design and to allocate their funding effectively. So our research comes out on March 31st. It will also be available in Nepali. So I would encourage everyone to be on the lookout for that. And we hope it will spark a conversation towards how we can all work together to really make sure that funding towards gender equality in Nepal is clear, transparent, and ultimately helps improve development outcomes.
Thank you, Ms. Shremi. So my next question is for Ms. Jyoti. Since you are a professor in the Department of Mathematics and have written books on statistics and data analysis, I'd like to ask you that what role does mathematics play in data science?
Thank you very much for giving me an opportunity to speak in front of this August gathering. Mathematics plays a very important role in data science. We know that mathematics is mother of all the sciences. It means that, in any discipline, if you put facts in mathematical manner, it becomes convincing, undisputable, and objective. And in data science, it plays a very crucial role because mathematics is the foundation of data science. Mathematical thinking is, when we are good in mathematics, it makes our logical reasoning very strong. So a good training in mathematics makes a person have a very strong logical reasoning, which will be very useful in tech as well. And when we are good in mathematics, we learn to talk in terms of numbers, and numbers are undisputable and objective.
Thank you so much, Ms. Jyoti. So my next question will be for Ms. Sumana and Ms. Shremi. So, Sumana ma'am, I'd like to ask you that how is data being utilized in your development projects, and how do we steer development in a data-driven way?
Sure. JB, do you want to go first? I think that was for both of us.
Sure, you want to? Okay, I'll go first, and please feel free to jump in or add on to that. Thank you, Mitali. Yes, I think this is a really interesting question. And as I previously alluded to, we found that in Nepal, key stakeholders working on gender equality actually didn't use a lot of the information that is published, right? We have a lot of governments that are making really great efforts to make this information available, and donor agencies as well. They're really committed to transparency. However, it's not being used on the ground. So we wanted to ask why that was. And we found that a lot of stakeholders said that they couldn't use data for their development operations because they didn't have the capacity to actually find this data, to analyze it, or to incorporate it into their operations. So one thing we tried to do with our project to kind of help mitigate that gap is to produce a video tutorial series. And with that series, we show what funding for gender equality might look like, how you can track it, why you should track it, of course. And then we actually show step-by-step demonstrations of how you can use some of the biggest databases to find that information and to find what information is most useful to your organization or your work to inform your program design and to start conversations and promote advocacy for better funding towards gender equality. So that's one way we try to do it. I can share the link in the chat. It also has Nepali subtitles, so please feel free to share it with a larger audience in case it is helpful. And we hope it is helpful to people. Thanks, Sumana.
Sure. So let me just build on what Jamie mentioned, and also what our previous speakers have mentioned. If you think about data, and the pace at which data is being utilized, it's very different in different contexts, in different countries. In Nepal, we are a little bit behind, and we have the traditional set of problems, similar to any organization or a country that's trying to be more data-driven. This entire concept of being data-driven actually stands on a culture of realizing the importance of data, the value it can generate, and thinking from taking that data of however way in which it gets produced into information, which basically then boils down to what Jamie was saying earlier, are people consuming it, right? So when we say we want to make data-driven decision, it's a whole cultural mind shift that needs to happen. And I'll give you an example. If this were to be done in corporate, a large organization, you will have somebody like chief digital officer or chief data officer, somebody who would be hired to basically put the pieces of puzzles together to bring about a cultural mind shift change that we need to figure out in what way we are producing data, figure out, do we have technology to access, process the data, and finally, are we producing the information from the data so the end users are using it to get a meaningful result, to make decision. So when we're talking, it's similar in Nepal's context as well. So what we try to do at Kosi Collaborative is we try to fill in that large shoe of Chief Digital Officer for Nepal in whichever tiny way we can. We help our clients figure out, we take the technology bit, but we really work with our client to ask those questions. What does quality data look like? What are the problems that they are facing currently? And ultimately, what is the end use of that data, right? So we're working with a researcher where we have a collaboration that cuts across universities as well, where we're trying to help them find some of the pertinent questions, answers to the questions that they are trying to research that ultimately then feeds into some level of policy discussion. So then going back to your question earlier, Mitali, of how is data-driven, it goes as small as, is it worthwhile conducting additional 5 days of survey, to as large as, so what are we seeing? Are we seeing, or is our sampling working out properly? It really feeds in every different aspect that we do. But overall, from an organization perspective, we're trying to create this dialogue, we're trying to create this collaboration, and we're trying to find a home where we can institutionalize this culture. And that's why we actually have a MOU, a working collaboration with Kathmandu University's Innovation Center. So we can institutionalize some of the learnings, some of the culture that we're trying to build in South Asia.
Thank you so much, Ms. Sumana and Ms. Jamie. So my next question is for all the panelists, and I would like to start with Ms. Jyoti. Ms. Jyoti, how do you leverage the power of data in your organization or in your professional field?
I am a statistician and in the university, my research focuses on interdisciplinary applications of statistics. So I sensitize my students. I teach students from different disciplines, like I teach students from engineering, students from pharmacy, students from environment science, undergraduate, both undergraduate and graduate students, and I sensitize them towards, in my classroom, I sensitize them towards the art of generating good quality data. I sensitize them towards good quality data. So we have to, when we generate data, we have to follow correct experimental designs and generate good quality data. And I talk about secondary data also, and um, uh, how the quality of the secondary data has to be tested before it could be incorporated in the research. Uh, uh, so this is a part of my job because I have been teaching and to different disciplines. So this is in the classroom. Before teaching, before starting with the course, I sensitize them towards generation of good quality data, the importance of data, etc. Then our university, I had an opportunity to be the coordinator of a self-assessment team. Self-assessment team is developed by the university when the university has to apply for quality assurance and accreditation, which is given by University Grants Commission. So every university in Nepal is accredited by the University Grant Commission. So there is an application form which requires a lot of data. And in 2018, I was made the coordinator of that team, and I had to fill up the form for accreditation of Kathmandu University. We have to fill up the form and we have to apply to University Grant Commission. So they also have a lot of details about, how many people graduated in different years, in different disciplines, what was the gender, how many girls graduated, how many boys graduated. And fortunately, our university has a very um, good digitization system with respect to admission. So they have all the data stored in Excel spreadsheets. So I have to go to the admission section and I have to collect the data and I have to fill up the form. So I had as a teacher of statistics and data analysis in the classroom, I sensitize the students towards the importance of generating good quality data. And as a coordinator of self-assessment team for quality assurance and accreditation application, I again got an opportunity to fill a very detailed form on the number of students studying, etc. And there also I use the data of Kathmandu University.
Thank you so much, Ms. Jyoti. So the same question goes to Ms. Jamie. So would you like to share how do you leverage the power of data in your organization?
Thank you so much. So research and data is our bread and butter at Publish What You Fund. So our research and our campaigns, we're really trying to do evidence-based advocacy to try and improve governments and donors' transparency about their funding towards gender equality. But we also have different teams who are looking at different types of funding and different types of actors that are trying to improve different types of development goals and outcomes. So we in our organization have a lot of brown bag lunches to make sure that we are not just improving the knowledge of one team about one specific area of data, but to make sure that we are all learning from each other and ensure that our capacity and our knowledge as an organization is growing and not just these specific individuals working on specific types of data. So we really want to make sure that the power of data is leveraged not just by one team putting out research or doing their advocacy, but as an entire organization to understand how pieces of data are different, how different data publishers and data users are different, and to ultimately make sure that we are learning together and understand how they are related, and basically ensure that we're not working in silos, because a lot of this is really related to each other.
Thank you, Ms. Jamie. The same question goes to Ms. Sumana.
So we help our clients make informed decisions using traditional sources or non-traditional sources of data. Data is not like data doesn't exist, but a typical problem every organization, every country faces is it's siloed. So we help them talk to each other, and we really try to separate the INT from information technology. Technology does not necessarily need to hold information and the consumption of data. So we bring in a lot of technology innovation to our clients to help them understand what are the information that they need to make the decisions and how to go about collecting those information. So we help them end to end from data generation, collection to interpretation. And we provide them that architecture and infrastructure.
Thank you so much. So my next question goes to Ms. Jamie. So Ms. Jamie, is technology paramount to make data-driven decisions?
Technology is a very big part of it. We work with a lot of open data sources. So we look at the government budgets that are being published. We look at aid information management systems, some of the global databases that are used and trusted, like the OECD creditor reporting system data or the International Aid Transparency Initiative, IADI data. But there are key considerations as to how this technology can be made more accessible. In some cases, there's linguistic barriers. Some of the data is published in languages that are not accessible to everyone in Nepal. We also know that there are some technical barriers. There are platforms that require login details or significant technical knowledge of either terms that are being used, the specific technical lingo, or just understanding how to use software like Excel to really analyze and interpret this data in a way that's useful to people and to navigate this in a helpful way. This is why we had some of the videos to try and help local organizations and women's rights movements in Nepal to do that. But at the same time, there are also limits to technology. There's an ecosystem behind it that needs to be addressed. And that's something that co-panelist Sumana also indicated earlier, is that there are barriers outside of it, like having enough resources, having enough time, having enough staff to actually look into this data and to make sure that they're engaging with the publishers if they have any questions or if there's any ways that they can improve to make this information more useful to them. So technology is a major part in making this more accessible, but it can only bring you so far. There needs to be an ecosystem that allows for this data to be analyzed and interpreted in a way that's helpful to people.
Thank you, Ms. Jamie. So my next question is for Ms. Sumana. Is there a security policy you know about that is restrictive enough to protect the growing volume of data used to drive operational decisions, but yet flexible enough to drive innovation?
Yeah, actually, so I would like to talk about this FAIR, FAIR data policies. And when we talk about FAIR data policies, I'm not talking about our internet uses where it's like governed under fair uses policy. I'm actually talking about a principle that was built by data scientists and practitioners in 2016. So FAIR stands for data needs to be findable, accessible, interoperable, and reusable. So I think when we create a data infrastructure and security policies with this guiding principles in mind, we also have GDPR policies that guide governments and individuals and organizations around how data needs to be stored and what kind of security policies needs to be built around it. I think there isn't a single security policy that can give you a black and white answer. Most of the time, it needs to be a conversation with the stakeholders on what is considered personal, private information and what is considered information that government should be able to utilize to form policies or to be able to predict. For example, during COVID, there was an initiative I was also part of to use cell phone data to analyze the movement of people so that they are able to predict the outbreaks. It got stuck a little bit at a policy level. That didn't go very far. So there are policies in Nepal that are restrictive, but again, I don't think it makes sense to just talk about one policy on one particular context. It needs to be a larger conversation about what is it that we are trying to do, that and give framework to organizations, development partners, and everybody boundaries and guidance under which they need to be forming their own policies, security policies.
Thank you so much, Ms. Sumana. Um, my next question will be for Ms. Jyoti and Ms. Sumana. Since you both are from technological field, how do you address the issues faced by women in your organization with the use of data? Jyoti, would you like to go first?
Okay. Now, women in the organization, like in our university, um, when I'm teaching in the classroom, so in the with the use of data, I think there is no problem. Men and women, they can use the data in classroom. When I teach, when I'm teaching in the classroom, I sensitize them towards good data generation and its analysis and interpretation. And men and women are equal in the classroom, but in some subjects girls are more in number, like in environment science and pharmacy. The composition of class is such that 3/4 of the students are girls and 1/4 of the students are boys. And in some classes boys are more in number, like in masters of engineering where I'm teaching currently, 3/4 are boys and 1/4 are girls. Similarly, in computational mathematics undergraduate class also, 3/4 are girls and 1/4 are boy. So in the university, with reference to data use, there is no difference between boys and girls.
Thank you so much, Ms. Jyoti. Ms. Sumana, would you like to add on to this?
Sure. So this is what I've seen in tech space. I did my major in mathematics. There were very few women in my classroom when I was doing my undergraduate degree. And I think it boils down a little bit to having role models, knowing that you can follow somebody's path and having a way forward, having somebody to talk to. That is one thing I feel Lisa also mentioned earlier, which is you need to have role models and you need to have somebody you can go talk if you're confused, especially in tech field, because there are not that many. If in Nepal's context, though, I think when I have interacted with a lot of women or um, students, there is this general concept that are put in women's head, I don't know at what age, that civil engineering is mostly for boys because you have to travel to fields. It's also put in place by family from safety and security perspective. Electrical engineering is put very much squarely, always like men's field or like even sometimes the community around you would probably try to convince you should drop to a field that's a little bit considered easy. So we need to change the narrative around women, their capabilities, and technology as a field. I think a lot also has to do with lack of availability of data. For example, in Nepal, we don't have something similar to Glassdoor. You can really see a big difference in earning prospects. Suppose if you're a computer engineer versus you are from a separate field, right? So there are these fundamental areas, fundamental foundations that needs to be addressed. And especially if we're going to address women in technology, I think it needs to be done at a middle school level, like 8th grade, 9th grade. That is probably around the time when women are, or girls are making up their affinity towards what they want to study. In the professional fields, I have heard stories about women as they're looking to start families being discriminated against as well, having or them being asked, you need to leave the job if you want to have a kid. So those are at policy level and societal level conversation we need to have. That being said, at my organization, it's actually we have more women than men. Right now, we are all female coders than male coders. Um, so yeah, I think there needs to be a conversation around this. We need to get more female in this space of analyzing data and also being a consumer of data that's being produced and being active participant.
Thank you so much, Sumana. So my next question will be for all the panelists. A lot of women complain that their voices are never heard, or the people, especially men, don't take them seriously. So whether it's interrupting, mansplaining, or having others take credit for the ideas, women have confirmed that this is a serious problem in the workplace. I've been through similar experiences where I was not taken seriously on multiple of occasions. So, how do you make sure your voice is heard, to be seen or be taken seriously? Jamie, would you like to go first?
Absolutely. And I think I have a similar experience to Miss Sumana when it comes to the ratio of women and men in our organization. We actually have a majority of female staff. So we are fortunate enough to have a lot of project managers who are working with data that are women and who decide on how how data is being used for our research and our advocacy. But I couldn't leave this leadership panel without touching on the importance of open and inclusive senior leadership specifically. So Publish What You Fund and our sister organization, Friends of Publish What You Fund, has senior leadership that buys into open and inclusive female leadership for our work. And I believe that's vital. Senior leadership in data, they have to respect the voices, the expertise, and the decision-making of women in our organization to really work with data and to learn to develop their skills and technical capacity and to move the conversation forward. And as has been touched upon earlier in the conference, women have unique perspectives, they have unique experiences, they probably have specific backgrounds that can help inform their data use and their analysis to make sure that data is disaggregated. So there are multiple benefits to having women working in data, but also there's a massive responsibility for senior leadership to make sure that women in data are being empowered and have their voices heard to move the conversation forward.
Thank you, Ms. Jamie. Ms. Julie, would you like to add on to this?
Yes, I have. I also have had similar experience in my organization. I feel that women have to be professionally more fit, in comparison to their male counterparts, and they are always subjected to different kind of tests, and they have to pass these tests, professionally. I'm talking from my professional background. Women who have worked in an organization for a long time, still they have to go through different tests, and so to pass these tests they have to be professionally more fit in order to assert themselves. So so we have to show more of our professional outputs. For example, from university, if I give you example from the university, women have to have more publications in high impact journals in comparison to their male counterparts, and then they are subjected to tests, professional tests, and they have to pass these tests. So that is my experience. So what I suggest, advise is, we have to continuously update ourselves professionally to be in this to be fit in this scenario. In order to be fit in this scenario, we have to be professionally very fit in comparison to our male counterparts.
Thank you so much, Ms. Jyoti. Sumana ma'am, would you like to add on to this?
Yeah, so I'm not gonna go into the experience part. I feel it is pretty similar. There is definitely a different hurdle rate for men and women. And just like Dr. Jyoti mentioned, I think we are a generation that is, we are the generation that have the responsibility to carry forward the conversation women ahead of us have started, which is for equality, to be taken seriously, and to be in positions that matter. I think there are a couple of key things people can do, women can do. First is, um, I think the best way to negate things like imposter syndrome, things like people questioning, is to be always professionally sound, just like Dr. Jyoti mentioned. That it would be the first step, and we need to realize the hurdle rate for us is much higher. The bar is much higher for us due to our gender. Accepting it helps us be more prepared. The second very practical thing women can do is to form a support network, be it in the organization, but it's also very useful to have a cross-organizational support system in case to learn what are the maternity policies in your organization versus mine. Am I being treated fairly versus the market? So those kind of support system always helps. And then finally, the third thing that I can't overemphasize is to have a mentor, and not to just have one mentor, but actually a whole team of mentors that you can go for different questions. Not one mentor can't answer, excuse me. One mentor is not most of the time suited to answer all different kind of questions. So you need to have an army of mentors that you can go to talk to, be a sounding board. So very practical three things for them to do.
Thank you so much, Ms. Sumana. So the next question is for Ms. Sumana. So in the context of Nepal, do you see that in the near future, the manual jobs that employ thousands of women in Nepal will be replaced by technology? How might it impact the economy of Nepal?
I'm not entirely sure if that is correct. Most of the job replacements that technology is going to bring is going to be in manufacturing sector and industrialized agriculture. Nepal is not at that stage yet. In terms of number and also in terms of salary that is being paid. If you look at the latest investment board's report, minimum wage in manufacturing sector is just 9,700 per month. That's pretty low. So if you were to ask me as a management consultant, does it make sense to switch out human labor with machine robotics? It probably wouldn't make sense. So I think there is a while before women working in the geography of Nepal are going to be replaced by machines. But I do think there is a genuine risk that we need to prepare for in terms of reskilling the labor force when it comes to migrant workers and what they do. And the automation that is going to take over, or they gradually replace some of the work the migrant workers from Nepal do abroad. And then that is going to impact the remittance income. But Nepal per se, I think there is a long way to go before machines take over, let's say, childcare duties, or let's say the manufacturing jobs. But having said that, I think it's important to always be thinking about the impact automation, robotics, and AI is going to have on the type of jobs our migrant workers do, male or female, and the impact that's going to have on our remittance income that we so rely on, and ask ourselves the questions: how are we going to assimilate? How are we going to retrain? What kind of skills we're going to ask them, or what kind of skills we're going to make sure that they have, so they stay relevant in 10 years' time.
Thank you so much, Ms. Sumana. So my next question is for Ms. Jyoti and Ms. Sumana. Big giants like Amazon, Facebook, Microsoft are led mainly by men. Why don't we find a lot of women leading massive technological companies? So, according to Forbes, only 11% of women are in the executive position in tech companies in Silicon Valley. So, even in Nepal, we only have one CEO among all 27 banks. Why do you think this is happening? Ms. Jyoti, would you like to answer this first?
Yes. Um, in Nepalese, in South Asian culture, marriage is universal. Marriage, everybody, most of the people get married. Marriage and childbearing is a universal phenomenon. It is part of our culture. So when a woman gets married, and in our arranged marriage system, uh, we have a different system. So when a girl gets married, there is a big change, in her lifestyle, in her psychology. So a girl needs a lot of time to get adjusted to this whole thing, getting married, bearing children, and then getting adjusted to this new life. So, because of this system, she lags behind in comparison to other women from developed worlds, because she has to take her family and her children and her new home in which she has come after she got married. She has to take it together, and that costs lot of energy and lot of time. Due to this reason, I think that there is only one CEO, woman CEO in Nepal. And then she needs a lot of cooperation from her new family. It's a new family because she has left her old family and she goes to a new house. So the family also has to cooperate with her, look after her children. So it takes a lot of energy and time. Due to this reason, I feel that women in Nepal, there is only one woman CEO in comparison to uh, in 27 banks. And that is my experience also. I'm sharing my own experience.
Thank you so much, Ms. Jyoti. Sumana ma'am, would you like to add on to this?
Yeah, I think very specific to Nepal, it hasn't, I feel similar to what Dr. Jyoti mentioned, right? It culturally, it is very taxing on women. The expectations that's put on women to prioritize the family. Suppose a husband and wife work for the same organization, and I know this. If something happens to the child in the school or Montessori, it's the mom that gets the phone call, not the dad. We have 2 weeks most of the time paternity leave versus 3 months to 6 months maternity leave. I think at a policy level, we need to rethink a lot of policies that hold women back. But it really boils down at some point to the cultural expectation, the societal expectations on women, on what women have to do to carry on the human race. Um, but additionally, what I would also add is uh, we need more um, organizations that support women, perhaps within the organization itself. Um, when I was at City, we used to have this big sister, small sister, this women's group, just to help women figure out, all right, if you're particularly not being, feel like you're not growing a lot in one particular department, what are the other opportunities in other departments? I feel we need more of those organizations in Nepal that is going to help women uh, go across departments, go across industries, and support them. So I think those are the key main reasons. You're on mute.
You are on mute.
Thank you so much, Ms. Sumana. The next question is for all the panelists. One advice, how do we make the young girls of today better in such a data-rich environment? Jamie, would you like to go first?
Yes, thank you. I think this is a really important question. And I think it's also important to respond with a question, which is, which young girls, right? We know that not all girls are the same. They all have vastly different experiences and characteristics. So there is a responsibility on the side of data publishers to acknowledge that complexity, to make sure that the data that is published about them, either when it comes to the funding that they're trying to improve the lives of girls, but also just the types of initiatives that they have started to try and do that, to make sure that that information is disaggregated, to account for differences in age, gender and sexual identity, disability status, economic status, native mother tongue, rural or urban location, economic status, educational background, and any other characteristics that really contributes to that intersectional picture of the girls in Nepal or the women that they're trying to benefit through their initiatives. And on the publishing side, there's also responsibility to really include young girls and all of these different types of young girls, and engage with local organizations that are advocating on their behalf, engaging with civil society who are key in making transformative change when it comes to gender equality. So feminist movements, women's funds, there are a lot of great organizations in Nepal like that. So making sure they are part of the data conversation and they are included, so that the data that is being produced is really helpful to their decision making and the conversations that they want to have with government or with international donors. On the other side, I think it would also be important to encourage the curiosity of girls and women in Nepal. So if data is being published about them to, for instance, governments and donors claiming that they are supporting their specific part of society, to make sure that girls and women in Nepal can use that data to empower themselves, to really hold the governments and international donors to account, to ask questions about why is this funding being made available? Why these initiatives? What are the objectives? What are the strategies that these are based on? How are they actually achieving this change? Are their results being published? And so that it really is a way for both the publishers and then people who hopefully will use that information, the data users, to start that conversation and to increase the accountability of governments and other funders that are supporting gender equality in Nepal.
Thank you, Ms. Jamie. Ms. Jamie, would you like to add on to this?
Yes, in order to involve more girls in tech, we have to focus on popularization of mathematics among girls at the school level. Development of mathematical thinking is training for logical thinking. This thinking helps in tech education as well. And in addition to that, for a country like Nepal, mathematics education does not require expensive chemicals or laboratories, um, internet, ICT, information and communication technology, with different study materials in the form of YouTube videos, PDF lectures, animations, can help us to visualize and conceptualize mathematical concepts. Girls, in their free time at home, can go through internet and update their mathematical skills, understand various difficult mathematical concepts, which was not conceivable in my time. In my time, when I was in the school level, when I was in 5th grade, 6th grade, in the middle school level, there was textbook and we had to understand mathematics from the textbook. And there were some teachers who were good, who could teach well, but there were some teachers who could not explain the concepts properly, although they had a good knowledge, and we had to find a way ourselves. But it is not like that in today's time. ICT, internet, helps us. The girls in the school, if we popularize mathematics among girls in the school, even at village level, those villages which have internet access, girls can update their mathematical skills through ICT. That way they can overcome their fear of numbers and they can be very good in mathematics. And this will This will develop a sound logical reasoning, which is a foundation for tech education. And I have also written one book on statistics and data analysis. Just I would like to talk very briefly about it. It gives lot of Nepalese case studies and examples, and it teaches statistics and data analysis in a very example based manner using Nepalese case studies and Nepalese examples. And it covers the university curriculum of the undergraduate and the postgraduate. And those of the conference participants who are interested in knowing in detail about this book, you can send me an email or you can contact me at my mobile number. This book also helps you apply the mathematical concepts to problems of Nepal.
Thank you so much, Ms. Jyoti. Sumana ma'am, would you like to add on to this?
Yeah, first of all, Dr. Jyoti, I can't wait to get my hands on your book. One of my concerns have always been in Nepal, we use most of the case studies written in EPS in Western world that is so difficult to relate to growing up, you know. So I think it's fantastic that you've written a book that is contextualized with examples that are pertinent to Nepal. I really want to, first of all, get my hands, and congratulations.
Thank you very much. We can be in contact through email or mobile, and then I can give you the book.
Sure, that would be fantastic. So going to your question, Mitali, I think we need to realize the gravity of question you're asking, which is how do we get young girls in tech? Look, I think we need to really dissect that question. There are girls in urban areas who are going to private schools. There are girls in rural areas who are going to government school. And I think we need to acknowledge and accept that that what we can do for each of the category is going to be very different based on who is our target girl population, right? Girl is a really broad term. I think acknowledging the differences in the means to get to what we are trying to get at, which is getting more girls being relevant, I would even use that term, in the space when data drives a lot of things. Imagine if, I wanted to sign up for Patao and I wanted to be a Patao writer, but I did not know how to operate Google Maps. I did not know how to write. That would really set me back, right? So the kind of policies we need to get more girls in technology is really different based on what is the target population that we're trying to aim for, what kind of tech sensitization we're trying to do, and what is our aim. So I think the question that you've asked needs to be broken down into multiple sub-questions with a very clear target audience. I will speak for the urban girls who are in schools, who have access to internet. I think what Dr. Jyoti mentioned is really relevant. You've got Khan Academy, my alma mater, MIT, has put all of their coursework online. So there really is very little, if you're talking about from access perspective, for urban population, girls who are going to private schools with internet connection, there is much less barrier than before. But we do need to make it more popular. But some of the things that I would love to see in future state would be math Olympiads, physics Olympiads, or hackathons that are catered towards girls to solve some of the problems that they want to solve, or even to identify some of the problems. But yeah, your question needs to be broken down into more contextualization.
Thank you so much, Ms. Sumana. The next question is for Ms. Sumana and Ms. Jyoti. It's generally seen that female-fronted companies perform very well, and the Fortune 500 companies with at least 3 female directors have seen a 66% increase in the return of their invested capital, and a 42% increase in returns of sales, and 53% return on equity increase. what are the ways we can turn tides in tech, especially here in Nepal? I would like to ask Ms. Shoti to go first.
Yeah, that's a very good question. Turn tide in tech. So we have to get more and more girls into the tech. So for that, we have to popularize mathematics education. We have to talk about, we have to give training to the girls to talk in terms of numbers. And talking in terms of numbers means being good in mathematics, overcoming fears of numbers. There is a big phobia, among some people about numbers, because when it is taught at the school level, it is portrayed as a very difficult subject. So but now the girls could overcome these fears. Girls in villages also could overcome these fears, and they could study themselves. They could update their mathematical skills through ICT, and through videos and animations, and we could update our skills. We did one study in 2018. In Tribhuvan University, mathematics is free. Tribhuvan University is free because it is subsidized. Government subsidizes. Government gives pays for the students, so it is free. But in masters mathematics, we did one research in 2018. For masters mathematics, there are 120 seats, 60 for first year, 60 for second year. In these 120 seats, there are only 70 students. So 50 seats are not utilized. Nobody studies. Only, even if it is free, only 70 people study out of 120 people. And out of those 70 people, only are 61 are men and 9 are women. So what I'm trying to show in terms of numbers is that although this education is for free, and mathematics is such a subject, it does not require laboratory or chemicals. So the education can be really very cheap, because costs for setting up a laboratory or costs for buying chemicals are not involved. But still, the seats are not occupied. There are 120 seats, only 70 seats are occupied, and only 61 men study and 9 girls study. So if we could popularize mathematics at school level, and girls could overcome the fear. Some While teaching also, math is portrayed as a very difficult subject, so there are many psychological barriers also. So through internet ICT, we could overcome this psychological barrier, and more girls could study mathematics. Thus they would learn to talk in terms of numbers, and then they can opt for various subjects like engineering. Once they are good in mathematics, they can opt for various subjects which form the foundation of tech.
Thank you, Ms. Shoti. Mr. Mohan, would you like to add something to this session?
Sure. I think the statistics, Mitali, you quoted are very interesting, and I actually want to spend a little bit time why that probably is the case. I think it speaks volume about the team's cultural importance that they place in their organization on diversity. I think that would be the key why boards that have females in them to perform well. I think if you have an inclusive mindset, you're open to ideas including the need to be data driven, and ideas that probably traditionally would not cross the barrier of, oh, is the ROI right now, does it passes the barrier, right? So I think what is actually more interesting to show the disparity that the females face is the percentage of VC fund that goes to female founded businesses. And that is really low. And if you actually talk about women of color, it is even ridiculously low. So I think those data points probably stand out in terms of showing the discrimination that women face versus the benefit a diverse team brings to the table. I think the way to turn the tides in Nepal is similar to what Dr. Jyoti mentioned. You really need to make it popular at a psychological level. You need to have a societal conversation of it is actually okay to be a civil engineer for females too, and make the technical subject less daunting because they don't need to be. And also, my suggestion would be the traditional way in which we think of mathematics in Nepal, which is, oh, mathematics is arithmetic, algebra, geometry up till 10th grade, and then you get introduced this subject called trigonometry. Mathematics doesn't need to be pretty bad. I mean, I am not very good at arithmetic, but mathematics is also about concepts, right? About being able to conceptually build frameworks. I would actually attribute my mathematical foundation to what I do in management consulting as well. I think the most important thing we need to do to turn the tide is we need more investment in very specific areas and that investment needs to go towards having a dialogue and changing the reference frame for parents and for society and for girls themselves that they can do it.
Thank you so much, Ms. Sumana. The discussion has been very, very interesting, but we only have one question left for all the panelists. So I would like to ask Ms. Shremi in the first place, what is one advice you would like to give for young women in Nepal who aspire to work in research or data science or a technical field?
Thank you, Mitali. And I have to preface this answer by saying I am not from Nepal. I have not been to Nepal because of COVID, unfortunately. So please take my answer to this question with a grain of salt. But even not having been to Nepal, even just through remote research and interviews that we've had with key individuals and organizations working to improve gender equality in Nepal, with our gender financing project, we have found that there's a very active civil society in Nepal working on and around data. So who are encouraging women and girls in Nepal to pursue data science and to pursue tech and to pursue this line of field, this research. So there's a really great opportunity for young women to engage with organizations, many of whom are present today in this conference, like Girls in Tech, Kosi Collaborative, Open Knowledge Nepal, Women Leaders in Technology, Women in STEM, and the Asia Foundation, to really work with them, to work with the data that they produce, to participate in their fellowship programs, as Ms. Sumana said, to also seek out multiple mentors to answer any questions they might have, and to really become inspired to use data to their own advantage, to pursue their own careers or to pursue their civil society goals. And ultimately, working in a technical field, working in data science can be a very empowering experience. And it can make sure that decisions about young women are not made without young women, and ultimately to make sure that young women have the power to hold the Nepali government or international donors or any other type of funder accountable to their commitments to improve gender equality in Nepal. So I would really encourage young women in Nepal who are interested in the research that we do to watch our videos to see if they are helpful, to look out for our report coming out on the 31st of March to really understand what the strengths and weaknesses are of available data when it comes to Nepal, and to really see how we can move the conversation forward to improve some of this data and to improve engagement so they are empowered to become a part of this.
Thank you so much, Ms. Shremi. Ms. Jyoti, would you like to add on to this?
Yes, I would like to advise the girls that they should continuously update themselves. You know, they should use ICC. They are in this golden era of ICT, in this era of internet. You know, there is death of distance. That means it does not matter whether we live in Nepal or Nepal is supposed to be a least developed country, but it does not matter whether the geographical boundaries don't count. Even if we are in Nepal, we can interact with any colleague in other part of the world within minutes through email and internet and WhatsApp, so and WeChat. So there are no geographical limitations now, and there are no limitations of educational material as well. Because say 20 years ago, 30 years ago, when I was a student in a student, libraries from least developed countries, they had few books, there were less material, especially on mathematics. But now it is not that. Even if the library has less material, we have internet, which has so much of information, so we can update ourselves. We should continuously update ourselves, because we will be subjected to different kind of tests at different levels. For that, we have to be professionally more fit. So we have to so through internet we can update ourselves, and we should never think that I am in Nepal, where we don't have any educational material, we don't have any resources. It is not like that. We have internet, and we should be able to search for our information. And if they have a mentor, that is very good. But if they don't have a mentor, there are some situations when you don't have a mentor and you are alone. And it's a globalized world. If you don't have a mentor in Nepal, you can have a role model in some other part of the world. And there is no there is we have a lot of exchange of ideas, we have a lot of flow of ideas through the internet. So if they have a mentor, that is very good. If they don't have a mentor, they should not feel alone. They should not be scared to update themselves through professionally. And for that, internet information and communication technology of the internet will help them.
Thank you so much, Ms. Jyoti. Ms. Sumana, would you like to add on to this?
Yeah, I have a lot to say, but I will try to be very brief. Um, I would tell the young women who want to get into tech space, or actually any other space, take charge of your narrative. Don't let anybody else say what you can and can't do. Take charge of your narrative. Be resourceful when it comes to problem solving. Just like Dr. Jyoti mentioned, you have access to some of the best resources at a click of your button. Get resourceful about what information you want to use, how you're going to use it, form a support network, and really don't let anybody bring you down. If like in Nepal we have this thing: if somebody is assertive, somebody have ideas, somebody questions, especially a male, we are labeled Hamandi, like we really are, right? Don't let those kind of labeling impact you. Have a support system. Have a what I would say is it's important to check um, yourself to make sure you are, in Dr. Jyoti's word, professionally fit. What I would say is stay relevant to the discussion. Make sure you are skilling yourself properly, but really help each other out. Very important would be to check your implicit bias, because we've grown up in a society where there are so many biases and so many lenses that are used to evaluate females, and usually those are harsher compared to male. That if there is anything that's holding your own perspective, so make sure you have that intellectual flexibility to check whether you yourself have implicit biases, that you are judging another female too harshly, but really support each other, be a network of women that is going to pull each other up and support one another in the times where you're trying to be it salary negotiation, be it trying to say, I want to switch department, be it I'm debating, do I go for electrical engineering, civil engineering, or computer science? Be there for each other. But most importantly, don't let society come up with a narrative for you. Be charge of your own narrative.
Thank you so much, Ms. Sumana. Well, now I would like to end this panel discussion and ready to take questions for the panelists from the participants. So, do you have any questions for the panelists? If you have any questions, you can raise your hands, or do you have anyone who can facilitate? anyone has any questions for the panelists, please do raise your hand, or you can message me directly as well.
Oh, we have a hand raised here.
We have a hand of Mr. Arnav Upadhyay.
Hello, everyone. Thank you to the panelists for your responses on these very diverse questions. I had a question to all three of you, in fact, since you're very prominent working figures in this area of math, data, and tech. So I was just curious about how growing up, you mentioned your challenges in this field being a female, but what did it look like in terms of the scope of finding women mentors? I know you touched on it a bit, but personally speaking, was it difficult for you to find women mentors in the fields that you are working currently? Was it viable of an option, or did you look to other men already in the field as mentors? Could you share a bit more on your experience on this? Thank you.
Okay, I will start. I studied in a girls' school, and my school teachers are my mentors or role models. But as such, in Nepal, I don't have a woman mentor to whom I go and consult every day. There is nobody. But for me, while growing up, my school teachers were my role models. So my mathematics teacher used to come and teach in the classroom. Some could explain in very nice manner. Some could not explain in very nice manner, although they were very knowledgeable. And I used to think, okay, well, once I grow up, I will be like her. So they were my role models. But as such, I don't have a woman mentor or any mentor to whom I consult. It is very difficult to find a mentor. And some mentors, you have to be very careful when you find a mentor, because it means, you believe him and him or her. And, so it is some kind of dependence also on that mentor. So it is time, slowly we have to be independent and we have to form our own ideas and own personality. So that is my experience at the school. My school teachers were my role models. Otherwise, I don't have anybody currently as a big role model. And we have to be very careful to choose the right role model also, because sometimes, it is good to be on your own feet and start developing your own independent thinking and take the help of ICT to develop your own ideas. That is my opinion on mentors.
I could go second. So Arnav, thank you very much for the question. Growing up, it was definitely difficult to find female role models because we didn't have a lot in media or like a banker, for example. So I think growing up, it was mostly like Dr. Jyoti mentioned, it could be your teachers, your parents, your siblings. But now I have an army of mentors. If I want to understand something about, let's say, Gen Z, how they are thinking, what is happening, I have mentors as young as 16 who would actually be like, it's not like that, it's like this. So I learned quite a bit from them. I have a very different set of mentors, men and women, who would probably give me advice on how to frame a certain particular work that I did. Um, I am still in touch with my supervisors from when I worked at Citigroup or BCG. I'm actually still in touch with my thesis advisors when I wrote my math thesis. I think when I think of mentor, I don't necessarily think of them as somebody who, as soon as they say something, I have to listen. I use my mentors as a sounding board. So it's always listen, and then the decision is always yours, right? It's a diverse set of perspective to learn and to make sure you're not being blindsided by your own biases and assumptions. Mentors they force intellectual flexibility because they question you, they challenge you. So I have a lot of mentors that I go to. currently, and I wish I did that a lot earlier, which is why also as a note to all the females and males, have an army of mentors that you consult, that you talk to.
Great. I really like the term army of mentors that you use, Ms. Sumana. I think that's very, very good. In my own experience, I've had some mentors that were in the field of data and tech, but also some outside of them. It started, of course, with my mother. I think most people can relate to that. My mother was a full-time working manager at a bank in the Netherlands. She was also the breadwinner of our family. So she was always juggling full-time work and also parenting. So I've learned a lot from just being her daughter and watching her navigate life and her professional career. I've had a similar experience as Miss Jyoti, where I was inspired by a lot of my professors at my university and my teachers, and always used their office hours. So whether they were my professional mentors or not, I definitely viewed them as mentors. And then I also learned a lot from my peers and my colleagues, as well as the senior staff within my organization. Some are female, some are male, some had more experience in data than I did, and some didn't, but they had other experiences that were really helpful to me as well. For instance, when it comes to project management or in the development sector. And then finally, I sought out an external professional mentor through a network online. It's called the Women in International Affairs Network, the WIAN. And I applied and I was put in their early careers program. And I was put in touch with someone from the UNDP who worked a lot in Southeast Asia, as well as in New York and in Europe. And they had a decade or more of experience in the international development sector. So that really helped me navigate some of the professional career choices that I had to make, and also to instill confidence, to make sure that I started to believe in myself, even though I did not have as much experience. So I think it was very valuable to have all of these different kinds of mentors. And at the same time, I think it was also a very important lesson for me to understand that I can also contribute to other people's mentorship. So making sure that I encourage other people to seek out mentorships or to offer my advice wherever possible or relevant, making sure that I just say, this is what my experience is, this is what my view is, please make sure to tailor it to your own experience and your own professional career. But it can be a very supportive network, and to make sure that the dialogue remains open, and it's a very supportive environment for women to make sure that they can have the confidence and have the knowledge to navigate their professional careers in data or otherwise in a way that they want.
So much. So we have a question from Carolyn. She's curious to know where all three of you draw inspiration from, particularly in a sector where there are barriers to using data in general and further barriers to women in the data field. Ms. Sumana, would you like to go first?
Sure. My biggest source of inspiration is my math thesis advisor, Lynn Buckler. She got her doctorate in math when it was very hard. She also studied at MIT. And she would tell me about the stories of the hurdles she had to face and the biases she faced, she had to overcome. So that gave me a lot of perspective, comparing what she faced to what I am facing or I faced. So I draw a lot of inspiration from her in terms of being able to overcome some of the societal or academic bias there is against the women. And in terms of professional, I have my supervisors, again, men and female, that inspire me to continuously ask questions and continuously make sure that I never let go of the intellectual flexibility that they have tried to inculcate on me. So it's a lot of people I've worked with and people who have mentored me during my formative years that I draw a lot of inspiration from, and people who I actually go back to talk. I also am really inspired by the women in Nepal in general, especially when you look at during the Maoist time, or even my grandmother. You know, she was a single woman raising my mom during that time. So it's really inspiring to see the journey and the severe problems that they had to overcome. It makes me really be grateful, and it really makes me feel like that I have a huge responsibility of making sure that other women don't have to face the problems that I am facing, because my like previous generation of women in my family and society made sure that I did not have to face the problems they had to face, right? So there is a sense of responsibility that conversation and that observation has given me. So that I definitely draw inspiration from that.
Thank you, Ms. Sumana. Ms. Jyoti, would you like to add on to this?
Yes, my school teachers are my role models, and they were my mentors also. They are my mentors also. My mother is also my mentor, and my professors at Lady Shri Ram College, New Delhi, during my bachelor's and master's study also mentored me a lot. So I think that whatever I am today is due to all this mentoring uh, at school level and at home, my mother, and at Lady Shri Ram College, New Delhi. This groomed me to what I am today. And my academic training in Germany during my PhD study also helped me um, intellectually to come to this point.
Thank you, Ms. Jyoti. Jamie, would you like to add on to this?
Yes, and thank you for the thoughtful question. I think one big source of inspiration for me was Sarah Telford, who manages the Office of Coordination for Humanitarian Affairs, UN OCHA, specifically their Humanitarian Data Center in The Hague. And she had a background in journalism and worked in the Middle East and in the US. So she didn't have a background in data or tech, and she had left her life in the US to take her family to the Netherlands to manage a data center. So she inspired me that you don't have to have a tech or a data background to get started. Everyone starts somewhere, and your knowledge can be helpful in unexpected ways. So for instance, I had a background in international relations and development and humanitarian emergencies. So while I was new to data, the data was about these areas. So it was the last missing piece of the puzzle, as it were. So it was still a very helpful experience for me to have that background to go into the data field. So I think I would inspire people to understand that data is always about something. So you can have a diverse background, and as long as you have the knowledge about something, you can contribute to this field. So that would be my take on it.
Thank you so much, Ms. Jamie, and thank you, Carolyn, for the question. Do we have any more questions? You can direct a message me, or you can raise a hand.
Vitaly, if there are not additional questions, should we end the session?
Yes, I think so. So I think we should end the session now. And thank you so much, Ms. Sumana, Ms. Jyoti, and Ms. Jamie for such powerful insight. Really inspired us, each achieving our dream in technology, data science, and research, and definitely bringing more women into the technology workforce produces more inclusive and competitive environment. And we can all move onwards and up together. We can do it. We can feel it in our core. And thank you so much, everyone, for joining us.
Thank you very
Thank you
much.
very much.
Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you so much, GIT and all the panelists for this really diverse discussion covering everything from data availability to gender equality and the role of mathematics and sharing experiences and how things are changing in the field. So I hope all the participants found this really interesting and useful for your respective sectors.